I'm Kevin Rinke, and I'd like to welcome you to Beyond the Echo. I ran for governor in Michigan. After losing that election, my desire to look at issues that are important to the state or the country grew. There is so much static. There are so many opinions. Our news stations have gotten to the point where we don't know what news is anymore. Where do you go to get real facts? This is about real perspective for you. Beyond the Echo will cut through all the smoke, all the opinions. It's not about Republicans, it's not about Democrats. It's about the issues and what are real. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Echo. Today we're going to focus on Q&A, and the topics are going to be broad. And we're going to start with the MIGOP convention that was conducted this past weekend. And we have a new chairman, Senator Jim Rumstead from Michigan, running the GOP now.
Okay, so the Michigan GOP has been in absolute chaos, but some would say, if you were in charge, let's start here. If you were in charge, what would you do to fix the whole thing?
Well, I'm not in charge of my GOP, and hell, if I wanted to be in charge of it, I would have run for the position. My GOP is very interesting, and I'm not sure that it's functioned appropriately for a long time. It certainly isn't a powerhouse. You know, when you figure that in Michigan, we have not had a statewide candidate elected since I think it's 2012, it's not a record of success. During that period of time, we've lost the Senate, we lost the House, we gained the House back. We have had infighting and considerable deterioration about what it is to be a Republican in Michigan. And so I didn't want to run for my GOP, and my solution for my GOP is that they got to get a meeting of the minds. You know, for Republicans to win in a state that they are the minority, we can run my GOP two different ways. You can be a member of the club, or you can say we're open for business. And if we want to win statewide elections, if we want to save Michigan, I propose that we have to be open for business. You know, right now we've got people in my GOP that think that identifying someone as a rhino and throwing him out is a step forward. And that, to me, is being a member of the club or passing a litmus test. And I think that's a bunch of bull. You feel good about yourself, but it's, in the end, you're going to lose. And, oh, by the way, litmus tests nobody likes. Nobody likes them whatsoever. Differences of opinions exist. You have them with your wife, you have them with your brother, your sister, your mother, your parents, your kids. For God's sakes, why, when you have a political environment, should there be an expectation that everybody's going to just get in line and, swear allegiance to a cause? If the cause is electing appropriate people, then maybe we need to identify people that are electable, for God's sakes. And we haven't done that. The results speak for themselves. We send candidates against the Democrats who don't have a chance to win. And you can blame the primary, you can blame the party, you can whine about it, or you can fix it. So if someone asked me what they should do to fix the Michigan GOP party, I would propose that you take the attitude that we are open for business. Look at what Donald Trump did. He was open for business. Who did he court? He courted minorities. He courted common labor. Who did he court? Billionaires. You're hearing about it. He courted the average person. He courted the exceptional person. He courted the oddball person. And where I'm going with it is, whether you like it or not, he was inclusive because he recognized what it takes to win. And he spoke a language that said, look, I'm going to deliver for you. And people bought into that. And we are experiencing it now. And it'll be interesting to see, how long do people stay committed? How long do they like what Donald Trump's doing? Because it's confrontational. It's major change. And a lot of people don't like confrontation. A lot of people don't like change. It is painful. And if you think it's going to be easy to win back America, to have an America or a Michigan that fits my vision of the state, and maybe your vision of the state as well, it requires dramatic change. So, people are going to lose their jobs. Doesn't make them bad people, but they're going to lose their jobs because maybe, like we're seeing with Doge in Washington, D.C., that a lot of those jobs really aren't necessary. And while they're getting paid, they aren't doing a heck of a lot. And that's just the truth. Government's mentality is hire 5 people to do the job of 1 because the 5 will get together and vote for government because they really know that they're not doing anything. And so it'll be a change in jobs. It'll be a change in how your taxes are computed. It'll be a change in how businesses are operated. It'll be a change in, unfortunately, and it shouldn't be, how the courts even operate. I had a post that said, government is corrupt and our judicial system is corrupt. And I happen to think that government is corrupt. Now, corruption has lots of different meanings, but corrupt in the sense that it doesn't tell the truth. Corrupt in the sense that it justifies decisions to reward itself. I'm not sure that the actions that it takes, that the first consideration is what's best for the people and what's most valuable for the people. It's what's best for the government and the people who run the government, and then it filters down. So that's a definition of corruption. When I say the judicial system is corrupt, equal justice under the law is one of the primary things that we stand for in our country. And forget about Donald Trump and being weaponized. There's lots of Donald Trumps that the legal system has been weaponized against. And unfortunately, in my lifetime, I've seen what I thought was a pure legal system turn into a 2-tiered legal system. Yep. People with money may get treated differently than people without money. That's one side of 2 tiers. But that's not the important side to me, because there's a process to filter that out, where I think we now have 2 tiers of a legal system. And why I think the legal system is corrupt is we have judges that are supposed to be nonpartisan, that are politically appointed. And instead of doing the job of a judge, which is to interpret and to reinforce established law, they're now writing new law. They're muddying the waters. They're making the gray area larger for interpretation, and that's destabilizing. So, I think that in the 26th election, Republicans are going to be dealing with something that's very unique, because between now and that election, Democrats are going to be saying that government is corrupt, that the president is usurping his authority, that the appointees that he has are bad. And what's so funny is they're no different than Biden's appointees or Biden's actions. It's how the press measures it. And I happen to think that the press ultimately is corrupt when they hide news and instead espouse editorial. It's their opinion. Now, I'm not interested in their opinion. I'm not interested in a pro athlete telling me his political views. I'm not interested in Taylor Swift telling me her political views. Shut up and sing. Shut up and play your sport. That's what I'm interested in. That's what I pay the money for. I'm not interested in a movie star telling me their political views because they're phonies. They are acting. They are playing. They are entertaining. And that's a different world than the citizens live in. We live in the real stuff. We have to get up every day and fight the fight. We have to go to work. We have to provide for our families. We have to provide for our children. We want them to be safe. We have to protect. We have to contribute. And those folks don't. They live in a different world. The people in Washington, D.C. live in a different world. The people in Lansing live in a different world. So, long-winded as usual. But I hope you get the point that for Republicans to win, for the country to win, to have a more conservative America, to have taxpayer money spent more efficiently, is going to hurt before you feel good about it. When Ronald Reagan was elected president, his first 2 years were horrendous. They were painful. But when people think about Ronald Reagan, or what do they talk about Ronald Reagan? That he re-energized. And I think that with Trump, probably the first 12 to 18 months are going to be tough on the people. Will they continue to support? Will the middle continue to say he's doing the right thing and we understand why he's doing it? Be interesting to see.
I will.
Yeah.
So I think actually that your answer gave a lot of really good context for what we're going to talk about. And you've talked a lot about, in different episodes even, about the importance of experience when it comes to these, especially these higher ranking elected offices. And so I guess I'd like to ask, what role does the MIGOP play in helping vet who should run? Anybody obviously can run. Everybody has the right to run. But in terms of who the MIGOP is going to get behind and support, do you think they're looking more at electability or experience? And which do you think is more important, electability or experience? And what should the MIGOP be doing to that?
That's an interesting question because if they are thinking about electability, they've done a crap job because they haven't gotten people elected. And if you look at this last election cycle, my GOP was so screwed up. And Christina Karama isn't a bad person, okay? She may be more extreme in some views than I have personally. She's not a bad person. I've talked to her. She's engaging. God, I appreciate her energy. But as far as leading my GOP, it was a mess. And ultimately, she hurt my GOP. Not a bad person. The job was bigger. It was outside of her understanding. And what we saw down in convention was that her group was still angry about how she got taken out of my GOP. And what did we do? When we're angry at somebody, we divide. Because we weren't angry at the Democrats, we were angry at Republicans. So Ambassador Hoekstra steps in. And I think the number was 24 million, maybe 28 million bucks that Pete Hoekstra raised from the time that he took over MIGOP. Did it help? Absolutely, it helped. Did it stabilize things? Having a financially viable state party stabilizes things, for sure. But in my lifetime, I saw more people. The House Republican Committee created their own PAC, and they had a group of people out soliciting, bypass MIGOP, give to the HRCC. They needed to do that to have a chance because they couldn't rely on the MIGOP. The Senate now is coming up, and they have their own PAC. So they are directly soliciting and competing against MIGOP. And when we were talking on Beyond the Echo, it was interesting. My intent was to interview all four candidates. We had Greenlee in the can. It was a great interview. He dropped out. We had the ambassador that we posted. We chased Michon, who canceled on us several times. We chased Jim Runstead, who canceled on us several times. And that was unfortunate because Scott Greenlee was dramatically different in what he thought MIGOP was than the ambassador and how it should function. I suspect that Michon and Jim Runstead would have been different as well. And you can generally say, oh, raise money and support Republican candidates. It's way more than that. Way bigger than that. And, it's just silly to say that that's the only role. Or if the value of MIGOP is, well, we get a discount on text messaging and postage, and we pass that along to the candidates. You also get a huge commission on it. And so here you are trying to help the candidates while you're making money off the candidates because, heaven forbid, politics isn't about money at all. It's not about money. Hell no. They're projecting that the governor's race is going to cost in 26 over $100 million. They're projecting that the Senate race could be $400 million. They're projecting that the cost of elections in 2026 in Michigan alone could be $775 million. And while all of that won't come from Michigan, a big chunk of that is taxpayer money. Say what you will, it's taxpayer money. Because the candidates, the parties, the House congressionals, the PACs, the 527s are all going to be out there doing everything they can to squeeze people. And if we don't come up with experience, people who are willing to deliver, really what we need in Michigan, and I never thought I'd say this, by the way, what we need in Michigan is a Donald Trump type of character. Not because I think that Donald Trump, everything that he does is right, or I like how he does everything, because I don't. But I like the vast majority of the policies. I like the fact that he is actually living up to what he said he was going to do. And a smaller government, an efficient government, is what Michigan needs. Absolutely. So, do you elect the nice guy or the nice gal that is a politician? And remember, I operate under the premise that politicians are why we're in this shitty place that we're in. They voted for every single tax. They make excuses when they can't stop something from happening. And it's never their fault. They're never accountable. So we've got right now on the Republican side shaping up for governor. If it's John James, I know him. He's a friend. He's a good guy. John James is a politician, and he is interested in getting elected more than he is interested in doing the job. Mike Cox is a regurgitated politician. And we have Mike and Laura, they both have baggage from their political scenarios that they serve the state. Politician. Eric Nesbitt, great guy. Green Acres, do. What a great guy Eric is. And he's out there on the farm. Yeah, right. 17 years in Lansing. He is a politician who wants to be elected. And what I'm curious about, and people keep saying, Kevin, are you going to run? I don't know if I'm going to run. But I can guarantee you one thing, I'm no politician. And I can guarantee you one thing, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it and not worry about hurting people's feelings or saying, I can't do that because you won't vote for me. That's what politicians do. I look at it and I say compromise is a good thing when you are making a deal. Compromise doesn't mean you bend over and grab your ankles. Compromise doesn't mean that you accept the wrong. That's different than making a good deal. And that's the difference between a politician compromising and a business person making a deal. Donald Trump's relentless. He is focused. He is stronger. He is willing to do things that politicians aren't willing to do. And you know what? We're going to figure out if America has the stomach for it, if Michigan has the stomach for it. But if we want to change is painful. It's never easy. And, you look at, I named some of the Republicans, and I like them all, by the way. You can be critical, and I'm not attacking them personally. What I'm saying is factual. They're politicians. You can make up that you worked in the private sector, but your history doesn't lie, your mouth does. And it's whether or not people want to believe what's coming out of your mouth or not. Mike Duggan isn't an independent. He comes out of the largest Democratic Party that we've ever had, the largest Democratic machine that we've ever had. Frank Kelly. Mike Duggan's responsible for Gretchen Whitmer. Mike Duggan's responsible for Jennifer Granholm. Mike Duggan's responsible for a lot of what the left has done, what the Democratic Party has done. But I'll give Mike Duggan credit. He's not as wacky as the far left. He's not a Green New Deal guy. Mike Duggan has a business side to him that Jocelyn Benson doesn't have, that Gilchrist doesn't have, that any of the other folks that on the Democratic side, that the sheriff doesn't have. Yeah, Chris Swanson. And again, all good people. I'm not going to say that any of them are scumbags or dirtbags, at least not on Beyond the Echo. I might whisper it to a friend, but won't say it live. But they're in the arena. And the challenge is, again, going back to the Michigan GOP party, what do you want? Tough choices. Do you want what you've been getting? With a Republican giving you what you've been getting, or a Democrat giving you what you've been getting, or do you want real change? And we'll see how that all plays out.
So tell us a little bit about your experience at the convention. So for those watching that didn't get to go down there, a lot of people don't ever see that. I got to go to one, and it was much different than I thought. So tell us about your personal experience at the convention, and then after that, I want to weigh in on your take about why the Trump endorsement didn't seem to help Michonne.
Yeah.
So let's start with your experience down there.
So it's an interesting deal because obviously people come from all over the state. This time it was in Detroit, down at the old Cobo Hall, and they've redone it. Beautiful venue, by the way. Really nice. They break up into districts, and you have all the delegates, and you have the alternate delegates, and you vote on your slates, and you vote on your electors, and your chair people and whatnot. And very interesting to me to watch. Several districts were efficient, were organized, were what I'm going to call functional. They completed all of their business in an hour and a half. There were other districts. One district required calling in security and having a guy taken out who was drunk. And that was funny because some of the fellow delegates said, well, he was drunk, but what he was saying was right. And he wasn't really out of order, but because he was drunk, they dragged him out. Not because of what he was saying or doing. Now, there were other delegates in the same meeting that said that he was out of order because what he was espousing was different than what their view was, aka confrontation, which cracked me up. I thought that was kind of interesting. There were, districts that were completely unorganized. I mean, I sat in one district, and I think they counted the number of delegates 6 times before they finally settled on the number of delegates that were in the room. And it's like, what you got to keep counting? Completely unorganized. The people running the event, people were shouting from the crowd. I think they got out at 12:30, 5 hours later. And everybody had the same thing to do. So some people got it done in a half hour, 45 minutes. Some people it took 5 hours to do. I don't know. It's interesting. If you've never been to one, unless you're looking for a comedy show, I would suggest you don't go to one because you'll scratch your head. And at least that's what I did. I scratch my head. I like efficiency. Every one of those districts, before they even get there, should have, in my view, had meetings to be in line and knowing what was going on. And anything less than that is just not acceptable. I had a bunch of people tell me that part of the reason my GOP the way it is now was because when Rick Snyder was governor, that he wasn't willing to work with the party. And I could see where Rick would be like frustrated and just say, I'm going to come up with a different solution. A lot of people don't understand what a delegate is supposed to do. And a lot of these people have never been in those positions before, and they are good people trying to make a difference. But you have to understand your role. And if you don't understand your role, you can be very, very disruptive. And whatever. I guess you can feel good about being disruptive, but what's the impact long term on the party? What's the impact on the state? And if you are a disruptor, are you also willing to be accountable for the disruption? And I don't think a lot of people understand that they should be held accountable. But that's just my view. It's I'm glad they're in the arena. I'm glad that they're willing to try and do something. But my GOP has a long way to go. I think any of the 4 people that were running would have done a good job. I think that no matter who wins, the party is still going to be licking its wounds I've known Jim Runstead a long time, and he will bust his butt for Michigan. I'm not going to speculate on will he be successful or not. He will put forth the effort, and the people of Michigan will decide if Jim Runstead's successful or not. They're going to decide by saying, I'm going to support him. I'm going to support him verbally. I'm going to support him financially. I'm going to support him with my time by getting involved. Because one thing that Donald Trump was able to do this time, we out-democrated the Democrats with a ground game. We out-democrated the Democrats. We didn't come up with anything new. We won this time because of hard work. And my GOP is going to have to say, did we have enough voters because Donald Trump was on the ballot? Because in 26, he's not on the ballot. Will those same Republicans that were willing to work for Trump come out and work for people in Michigan? Because that's what it's going to take. Otherwise, it'll flop right back to the left. The Democrats will not give up, aren't going to give up. And what the Democrats don't have is a Donald Trump. Republicans, we're rallying around Donald Trump. You know what? I'm rallying around my country. I'm rallying around my state. I'm rallying around conservative values and doing the right things for people. And I don't need Donald Trump to activate myself, but a lot of people do. Or a lot of people will use that as an excuse. So we'll see. I know this, Jim Runstead will put forth the effort. It'll be really interesting to see, will Michonne stay involved? Got to be embarrassing, for God's sakes. I mean, she's been active. She had Donald Trump's endorsement. And she lost. And whether I like it or not is not the point. She got her butt kicked. 67% to 33% is a butt whooping. And was that an indictment of Donald Trump? I don't know. Or was it an indictment of the candidate? I don't know. And, Michigan's interesting because Donald Trump's endorsement has helped people in primaries and hasn't done a damn thing for them in general elections. And is that because Donald Trump or the people in Michigan that are still in power want to tell Michigan what they need to do versus ask what's best for Michigan? Because I happen to believe that the people of Michigan know what's best for Michigan. I don't think Washington, D.C. knows what's best for Michigan whatsoever. And that doesn't mean Donald Trump isn't great. But I don't think he knows what's best for Michigan. He may know what's best for the country. And we're going to see. Jim Runstead is further to the right, I believe, than Michonne in the Republican Party, but he's not way right. And so his challenge will be, how do I appeal to the more moderate people? How do I energize both the right, who turns out big time for Donald Trump, but not for the candidates we put forward? Or how do I motivate the middle? Which, as I said earlier, are we open for business? Or is this about being a member of the club? And what's the litmus test? A good day for Republicans is not insulting someone who may not have the same views as you. And you're a rhino. I struggle with that. Is that a financial definition? Is that a social definition? Is it based on zip code or the clothes you wear?
Well,
Um,
the grassroots, a lot of grassroots, especially the really far right ones, truly believe a rhino is somebody that is a Democratic operative that is posing as a Republican in name only. I mean, they really believe that these are not real Republicans. These are people that are posers. And so, I mean, I'm sure that exists, but they're willing to label a lot of good people that, and it's dangerous.
yeah, I just not how I think. And I think that that's limiting. Again, I operate under the premise, and I don't give a darn if you're a Republican or you're a Democrat. People in general, as a rule, agree on 85%. And it's when we start to look for fly, poop, and pepper on an issue or with an individual that we become really, really emotional and we become divided. I think there's a tremendous amount of progress that can be made working on the 80 to 85 or 90% that people naturally, because we are not firing on all four cylinders there. And there's going to be some things that you never agree with. You know, I mean, I know married couples that won't bring up topics because they aren't going to agree. And they're still married. You know, it's not a condition that you agree on 100% of everything. It just simply isn't. That's not the real world. So, would you rather be happy and successful, or would you rather be right? And that might mean being right makes you unhappy and unsuccessful. And I don't like losing.
So I think the best thing would be to wrap this segment up
Okay.
with what you think. You know, we're less than 2 years from electing a new governor, and that's going to fly.
Yeah.
And some other obviously really important seats, and the new leadership at the MIGOP. What things need to happen to make sure? What I mean, I guess in your own words, what are some things that need to happen to make sure we get the right people, not just to win the primary, but to actually win the state back?
So, you know, it's an interesting thing because numbers can lie, polling can lie. What compels somebody to vote in a primary versus in a general election are two different things, interestingly enough. So I think for Republicans to win in 26, what we need, and to be determined who the candidate is someone more like a Donald Trump. And there are those out there that are going to cringe when I say that. But here's what I mean. If we don't believe in DEI, okay, diversity, equity, and inclusion, if we believe in meritocracy, which is the most qualified person should win, that's a whole different filter than we like this person more. Donald Trump just won, and guess what? There's a lot of people that voted for him that don't like him, but they're willing to follow him. They believe that he's bringing something that's necessary. And I'm going to share a story. I'm going to leave out their last names, but some really dear friends of my wife and mine, Heather and Rick, their daughter was terminated today. She works for the federal government. And she had worked for the federal government for less than 2 years. And under Doge, they fired everybody with less than two years of experience. That was the first cutoff line. And Heather and Rick both supported Donald Trump. And yet it hurt them today. And it hurt their daughter. And that type of conflict is tough for people to understand and accept. So I believe that Michigan needs a leader, maybe not as bombastic as Donald Trump, but who is just as tough, who has just as much grit. Michigan likes to say, hey, we're tough. We are Michigan tough. Our Lions, man, they're gritty. The Red Wings, they're not big, but man, they got a lot of fight. Our Tigers, they were tough down the stretch. And we've all adopted this, how tough are we? Well, you know what? A lot of times tough people aren't that likable. A lot of times tough people make the tough decision that nice people wouldn't make. And at the end of the day, you know, the tough people put their head down on the pillow and go to sleep at night. And they got to wake up the next day and not dwell on the tough decision that they made. They got to make the next tough decision. And so those people are wound different. They're outliers. They're outliers. Ulysses S. Grant was called a butcher because he could make the tough decision to just keep sending troops into battle. And he said, as long as I've got somebody living, I'm going to keep charging. And it didn't seem to affect him. George Patton was an outlier. Dwight Eisenhower was an outlier. The responsibility, you know, even in politics today, it's funny. You got to be tough. You got to be a fighter. And all too often, if you're making a decision based on electability, I'm telling you, you're making the wrong decision. There's the right decision. Republicans need to make the right decisions. And so I think that's step one. You know, we're seeing a history in the Republican Party, and I don't believe that it's the same in the Democratic Party. We've got several Republicans that were in leadership positions that are being charged for stealing money and, you know, misappropriations and this, that, and the other thing. They were really likable people. They were really good politicians, but they weren't really leaders. They weren't willing to do what it takes to push through. They'd come up with excuses as to why they weren't successful or why they did what they did. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting. There's a lot of fighting that goes on with Republicans. And I don't get it. I really don't understand it. Conservative values are conservative values. The purpose of government should be able to be identifiable, and either you buy into that or not. And when everybody thinks that their opinion matters, man, it gets confusing. So people have to realize within government that their individual perceptions really aren't that important. What's important is the perception of what the leadership has for its people, not the people's perception of the leadership. Does that nuance make sense?
Yeah.
And that's hard for people to do. You know, you got an opinion. But at the end of the day, really, you know, if you are a worker and you think you are the smartest guy in the company, and you think you are the hardest working guy in the company, and everyone around you is getting promoted but you, is your boss an idiot? Or are you the idiot? Your perception is you're great. But at the end of the day, you know whose perception matters? Is the guy making the decisions. And the challenge is for people to understand how that guy operates. What's his litmus test? See, because what I'm going to propose to you is when somebody gets bought off, when they aren't willing to do the right thing for political reasons, that's a reflection of who they are. They don't have the strength to do the right thing. And leaders do. Now, the question becomes, and geez, I'm out on X and Facebook and social media. I should show you people some of the hatred that gets directed at me. And everyone says, oh, Kevin, use those social mediums to give an opinion, but don't read the responses. Well, I read the responses. And I actually care enough to listen or to look. And I'm curious. But if I shared with you some of the things that idiots say, it's like, are you kidding me? These are our neighbors. These are our people in our community. And to stoop that low, they're weak. They're whiners. They're not problem solvers. They're selfish. And most of them are cowards. They don't even have the guts to put their real names on. They come up with their cute little surnames and think that they're really doing something big by criticizing someone who's willing to throw something out there instead of being constructive. Yeah, that's what Michigan wants. It's great. You know, that's not tough. That's not gritty. That's just weak. Absolutely weak. They're cowards. And, you know, the beauty of it is you're entitled to your opinion. What's the solution? Donald Trump's actually proposing solutions, and that scares the hell out of politicians. Solutions scares attorneys. Go ahead and look and see how many attorneys are politicians. You know, if there's no conflict, if everything is resolved and running properly, their reason for being is diminished dramatically. Attorneys rely on conflict. They naturally create it. They naturally create it. There's a guy on my X account. It's funny. I've known him a long time. He's an attorney. He hates Donald Trump's guts so bad that when I give my opinion, he tries to imply that I'm speaking for Donald Trump. And Donald Trump does this, and Donald Trump does that, and Doge does this. You know what? I'm not speaking for Donald Trump. I speak for Kevin Rinke. And if you want to attack me, bring it on. Bring it on. And let's have a cognitive discussion about the differences. You know, he's appalled that Doge sent out a note saying, give me the 5 things that you did the last 10 days. Well, you know what? In private business, people ask that all the time. What did you do last week? Like, that should be outrageous. And you've got departments saying, oh my God, you know, we're going to disclose national secrets. Don't be a dumb butt. I mean, come on. That's not what the question was. And it's okay for a boss to ask. It's okay to be held accountable for what you do. Why should, just because you have a government job, you think that you are employed for life? That's wrong. That's not real. It's not America at all. It's a bunch of crap. You know, you go back to COVID, and I didn't see too many government employees giving up their full paychecks for not going to work. When the people who create the money that pays the government employee, their businesses were shut down. They were living off of their bank accounts. There weren't a hell of a lot of government employees, none that I know of, that said, I'm not going to take my compensation. And that was at the state level. That was at the county level. That was at the city level. That was at the federal level. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. A dose of reality. There's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with Donald Trump asking Elon Musk to ask people, what did you do last week? And you know what? If you can't answer proudly that you did something constructively, maybe, just maybe, you should look over your shoulder. Because maybe, just maybe, you're not a good employee. Maybe, just maybe, you're not doing what the people expect you to do with the money they pay government. And maybe, just maybe, you need a dose of reality. Quit hiding behind the government employees union or whatever union that covers for you not doing a good job, if that's what your union does. Or step up. Be accountable. Be proud of what you did and be willing to share it. So I hope you enjoy some of my thoughts on my GOP. Understand this, that I don't believe that being critical of an entity should be a negative. It's called constructive criticism. And what I'm urging Republicans to do is take a different look at our party and at our state. Actually look at what we want to accomplish for ourselves, but also for our fellow citizens. And we need to be different. We need to be better. I am not going to be negative about Jim Runstead. I'm going to give the man a chance. He just won, and he deserves a chance. Jim, my expectations are high. Michonne, my expectations are high. I hope you're still in there working for the good of the party and the state. Ambassador Sella, don't go away. Scott Greenlee, you have a role to play. Be leaders and help get Michigan's back on its feet. So those are my views. I hope you have questions about it. Ask me questions when you see it on social media. And you might be surprised because unless your comments are just really nasty, I'll explain. I'll take the time. I care enough to make sure you understand what my belief is and what's right for Michigan. And that's how Beyond the Echo is different. Beyond the Echo in part is me in cutting through the BS. You knowing what I think. You also have to know what our guests think. But on this episode, it's what I think, and that's Beyond the Echo. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for tuning in to Beyond the Echo. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe so you never miss an update. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop us a comment and share the podcast with your friends. Stay connected and keep the conversation going by following us on social media. Until next time, keep exploring Beyond the Echo.